What's up, everybody? My name is Kalen. I am the Key Keeper, back with another episode of At Pure Keys Lake. We are going to kiki about all the keys that clue us into the contradiction of self, the confluence of archetypes, and what can and what can't we really do. This opinion piece is inspired by a slew of reflections, actually. So the past couple of days I was going through a very deep process of clearing things out. I was just very intent on what I don't want to see. I don't want to see. It's not a matter of it doesn't exist to me or I'm unaware of it now, but if it doesn't exist to me because that is my choice, then that is a conscious choice at this point. It's not a choice made for me or a choice out of ignorance or a choice made out of survival or trauma reaction or anything like that, which of course we always have to be watchful of that. But because of the space I am trying to create on this channel where people can talk about these things without feeling like it defines them, right? Because what you guys are going to notice, I'm going to sound very contradictory. I'm going to be very all over the place, and I am constantly going to refine and outgrow these shells of myself, and basically I'm going to be reflecting to you guys what an optimal homeostasis process should be. When I get there, obviously I am not perfect, but can I see what perfectionism I would not want to strive for, but just be? There's this fine balance between like having life be a journey and learning to grow with that journey and growing with your knowledge. But there's also a part of what you came with and what you should always remember, and like what you receive, even if it's not all yours, or there are just these things out there that is like, renounce everything, renounce the body, renounce the ego, renounce just your senses or your physical pleasure or food. Some people claim you should be a breatharian, some people claim you should be a vegan, and I am not against any of those things, because my whole Mars and Virgo process of becoming was looking for the optimal, functional, useful way of putting the Christ in the palm of your hand, right? Being able to perform the so-called magic and miracles like healing and whatever is necessary. Like, can you show up in your life and know that you are gonna have the skills to just deal with anything, be ready for anything, and even having the skills to be open or ready to learn or ready to take a position when something opposes you, like just grounding yourself in your position or learning to like remove yourself from that position if like the shots fired are coming exactly to that target. You know what I mean? And not being disingenuous about having had those needs, having had to face the world in a way where, because not everything is this Like, let me just put it this way. It's about balance. And sometimes balance doesn't really look like what our first idea of it would be. Let me just put it like that. Because every time I had a idea or a first principle notion of what balance or equilibrium should be, everything is moving, everything is changing. There's this entropic dying to everything. So what am I talking about? You know what I mean? Like, the only reason why we are able to perceive that is because we have a life that junctions us to have that perspective. And that's true for everybody, right? It's like how they find themselves at the center of this toroidal field vortex, bringing into them the frame by frame of every neutrino of photonic information. If that is what's out there, if it's just us having more sophisticated words for what used to be called the Holy Spirit, and even that word holy, like, is it full of holes? Is it like, what is this wholeness talk, right? What is singularity talk? Like, does it all go back to AI, fallen angel, Nephilim, seductions, right? Even me in Leo going direct, having had this purpose revealed to me in this idea that I had about Sekhmet and Ra and Doja Cat, and just what I wanted that to mean as an appropriation of ancient knowledge to like a modern context, right? I wanted to say that she is blasting the people, she is this righteous rage, bringing perspective to the parasocial relationship. I wanted to do this whole wordplay. But then, that video of his came out, and just the whole ritual that I saw was happening. Like, even because, like, I have smaller cousins who are on TikTok and stuff like that, so I was just like, what are we inviting in now? Like, and my whole thing is, as I mentioned, I used to love watching horror movies, right? And remember that intro to like certain horror movies where the boy is watching something late at night and then he goes to bed and it just seems unfazed, like the movie just, okay, it's over. But then when he's going, in his sleeping mode, he is, the fact that the screen and the light of that is like still showing and showing how he has internalized it and how it's now kind of staring back. I'm literally getting like a cold chill, like in my face and spine. Granted, I am outside, but like I wasn't like actually getting cold. I was just feeling it in my hands now until it was like just there now when I was talking about these things, because it was like, my mind caught this like screenshot of that video because my cousin just unsolicitedly was like, look here, and a part of me wanted to look, but I was just like, the thing was not loading properly, and I was like, okay, stop it. I do not want to see that, because like I could already see like the types of tropes that were being played out in there. And then obviously there was now this whole TikTok revolution, and I actually have a revolution, but there's this so-called evolution that it's like, to the narrative now. Like, there's this screenshot that I have, like, did she just create millions of believers by just scaring them that bad that the devil could be real? And I was just like, damn boy, now it comes. Like, a few days ago, like, you didn't have the like picture to see what needed to be seen on that, right? Because like I didn't think it was gonna go there. I was like, it's gonna be this, just, they have all these rituals. There's like the time's up ritual, there's the like Me Too ritual, and there's the, yeah, we know, like we've been peeping, right? But that's the point, Tom. We've been peeping. So through the keyhole of our voyeurism and the calculatedness of the exhibitionism, um, that was just a whole metastasizing topic on itself, like parasocial parasites, like, yeah. But then, um, like those were some of the screenshots that were just like in my notepad, where I was trying to have different types of plays on the words and purrs and lyrics that she used, and like, because I'm just like childlike that. I just like want to make these little references that everybody can laugh at, and not like, I want to be innocent, but I don't. It's not like I want to be innocent fake or innocent ignorant. I just want to use the words purely to be like, well, you could have read those words, I could have read those words, but the fact that those words told me this and took me there, and what it meant to everybody else, scaring them to go finally read the Bible. Maybe me having gone through thousands, and I do mean this, thousands of YouTube lectures. That is why I can refer to the rabbit hole, I can refer to the algorithm, I can refer to the feed, because I could see it metastasizing in myself, as a reflector, as someone with all those open channels and all of that. So, even the way I was able to like bring astrology talk and tarot talk and all this talk, and siphoning it all back to these Greek divinities and Asterian, and how that gave me this link, and I was like, oh, Whitney Houston, Persephone, the voice, it finally makes sense, this Bengali, this, that, I see how they play it out in the movies, blah, 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 blah. Like, I went there. But then I was like, Scorpio Oxman, he corrected me, pardon. And then, let me just drink some water. See, I was having like a bottleneck type of reaction again for my throat codon ring of secrets, Chinky 12, because there's a part of the world that isn't ready for this, and who's going to click on my video getting the shock that they could have gotten to the same extent of discombobulation by watching Doja Cat. Like, am I any different than that? Like, even with maybe some of the artworks that I could have put up, with some of the ideas that I played around with, and so on, and which I chose not. And if you guys will see, like, I've been changing some of the just like adding more detail to the descriptions, trying to use AI, by trying to add some of my own little broken mind sentences of Uranian poetry that I think makes sense in a moment, that I like try to type it out. And then, sometimes I look back at it and I'm like, I don't even know. But that's all part of this process, right? The authenticity of it all. And, me incrementally implementing my talk, with the guideposts that I'm setting for myself. Because as I explained to Free to Behold Astrology, after what happened and what sparked my first video, I'm finally just gonna be the person who takes responsibility and takes accountability to grow myself the rest of the way up, and that is also something that I've heard somewhere out there. So it's not my Uranian idea of Free to Behold Astrology, like, even though you gave me the compliment of that, I sat on the other side of that screen feeling duplicitous about that, because obviously the compliment felt good. I was recognized, projector, reflector, emotional projector, as you know, he has been seen for his light, the two side of the 6-2, and the natural talent of, like, you know, whatever it was, that Promethean wordplay, bringing the bull's eye to the speech, and everything that just whether things shift, because I have a Stellarium app now, and I can't think in terms of like Punarvasu and the two twin stars and Artemis, and I can't altogether have it on like a mastering the zodiac sign. I've had one life, and in that life all of those archetypes became informing and just part of the wisdom that was in the world for everybody. But what it like germinated and meant for me, you know, there are archetypes that we can try and say they are universal, that the cause and effect of the story is the maps of meaning. It is the loop of the consciousness acting towards meaning and functionality and beauty and all these Jordan Peterson like thoughts, right? Have you ever heard a discussion by Jordan Peterson? Like, if, oh my gosh, like, if I was like Beyonce in Pretty Hurts and be like, what is your aspiration in life? Aspiration in life. I would be like, my aspiration in life is to be happier and more content and sure, even when I have the sharp intellectual foundation, like someone who I admire as much as Jordan Peterson, because that man's got the hasta, he's got it, right? And is it without problems? Of course not. Do I know where I stand on pronouns and things he has gotten in trouble with? Yeah. Because here's the thing, guys, like, to tackle a totally different aspect that I just kind of have been avoiding to talk about, but this being Venus going direct, right? I love men, and I think it gives me so much pleasure, and yet I find I can't give myself to that relationship needs until I work through this part of myself, because that is the ultimate root of why, like, the thing is, nothing else made me afraid of God except the fact that I was gay, or told I was gay, or, you know, even when I was just like, there was the guy that I mentioned about the human design who went and did his own thing, right? You know, he gave me a perspective on like 6-2s and reflectors, and particularly reflectors in terms of like how we respond when any type of sexuality is projected onto us, right? And like me, for example, having my Lilith midheaven conjunction in Virgo in a sign where I also had Mars and the North Node, which just like brought a lot of gaze to my body, and I always felt like people cut out a picture of me, like, not to like, you know, I was like, why are you so obsessed with me? Like, no, it's not that. I was literally bewildered and scared so much, because you know, when I didn't understand what could have been, you know, just the psychosexual undertone of all my 12th house Pluto, Moon, Scorpio, Sag, Libra, whatever it is, placements, all of my Venusian placements, all of that kind of like squaring and crowning towards the midheaven and Lilith, and Mars being this like pointedness of it all. You know, there are ways that talk charts. Anyway, and I'm not gonna edit that out because this is what happens, guys. Like, this really, like, these are the things that held back my confidence, and these are the things that I just now have to like get over, putting it out, getting the rough ashlar out there, getting myself, you know, polished to my standard, whatever that would mean, whether it's vanity, whether it's insecurity, whether it's scared of being separate, or the dilemma of aloneness and wanting to belong, the way that Gene Key 12 clip said. The thing is, these are all just like fragments of understanding. But what I feel is I just need to be patient with myself, even though I have this very like open ajna situation or whatever it is that's bringing all of that to the top of my solar focus, right? um when I kind of like lived more from like a 12th house moon space, and I didn't know that's what I did, you know, that's when I could recognize the fact that my personality sun Gemini projected onto the 7th house. Because, for example, walking around in school being like outcast, you know, not, I don't know, by my own design, but probably by my own, uh, either, like my astrologer said, it's like the aloofness of, I don't know what I can add to the conversations happening around me, because it's just, it's not, I didn't know how to relate to it, like, without it needing to make me feel disingenuous or superficial, or like I wasn't gonna say what I really wanted to say, or what I would say would probably hurt somebody's opinion, or feel like, you know, like, and whenever like I felt comfortable or thought I did have the proper invitation to speak my truth, you know, there were people who were meant to hear it, and there were people who flat out rejected it, and you know what I mean? And was I guilty of times of giving my advice unsolicited? Of course. So all of those parts of the process was also part of the narrative. And so when you listen to that natal chart synthesis that I posted, right, I highly recommend you guys go and support that channel. I think it doesn't even have 500 subscribers, and I mean, I don't even have 12, but how does that guy not have more than 500 subscribers? He has a flourishing Facebook group, his business, like, I'm sure he's making his coin quite fine, you know, because he was able to give me a natal chart synthesis when I could literally only pay him $10, you know. Like, I don't know how much that was in South African rand at the time, but that's all that I had in my PayPal. And he literally told me, like, why did you send the money? Like, I already began with your thing. It's not something that I actually expected. Please, return it to yourself, and so on. And it was just very humbling for me, because I've always been very proud of, if I can't do something for myself, I wouldn't ask anybody else. I would just create a space or set up a station so that I could like independently learn how to get there for myself. So, and that's also just like not a always ever forever type of happened forever. So like crystallizing that narrative, Neptune, Saturn in Pisces. Like those were just like where my little silver-footed Mercury quicksilvered as well. You know, it's funny to think how fast my mind works and how slowly I felt I experienced my life. Because it all just felt so like it just became denser and denser around me. And even though every time I could subjectively experience the gravity of it all, I was always able to like lighten up, you know, and because of the mirror that I had around me, where if I lightened up and it wasn't for the entertainment or whatever is signified by the Saturn in the fifth house in Aries, like if it wasn't serving a purpose other than aggrandizing my ego, I suppose, like it became a calibrating factor where I was kind of like told to tone it down, or that, you know, something should have been unsaid. Like all of these little learning curves that the projector energy, reflector energy goes through. And, you know, having a lot of manifesting generators around me, and I always became charged up when they became charged up, and I, you know, like I would get drained if like things happened that just like created that type of energy. So yeah, I felt like I didn't have emotional authority because I couldn't dictate to myself how to feel, and yet my feelings were always this ever present ebb and flow of the same sense of it all still exists in that gravity of memory and interconnection and patterns of knowing. So whatever kind of like trickled or rippled or triggered that Chiron in Libra moon balance that I'm trying to tropically sidereally see what my tiptoe dance was. It was a very fine nuance of me learning to understand that you are in every way responsible for the energy that you put out there, right? And that's not supposed to burden you. It's supposed to, it's just supposed to be what you know when you get to that level, you know? But when you don't know that that's what you should call it or whatever, you just go through life like a black moon waiting for like a sunlight to absorb it so that you can like have a face to yourself, you know. Otherwise you could just like be here and Pisces in the fourth, get out of there. Like, you know what I mean? Neptune in the second, so like I could put my like Neptune bull's eye at the literal foundation of what fed into my Sag rising on the ascendant. So, and I'm not saying that all of that was all this, it was so conscious to me, like it was Neptune and whatever. But everything that I know about Neptune, the way my mind thinks, the way I make up words, the way I, you know, just the way it merges with my Uranus and like that Capricorn on the cusp and all of that, and trining the Mars and trying to cut out these pictures of my imagination, right? All of that fed into why this natal chart synthesis combined at the right time and place, like the hand of God, for me to see, it all still points to me, even if it's discombobulating, even if it doesn't have the type of symmetry that your Venus D9 in Sagittarius, Mula with like Purva Shadi Uranus vibes is trying to weave and braid and create the DNA of meaning between all these fractals of things that you want to compassionately embrace because it was beautiful and it was teaching you and it was the good, bad, and the ugly, right? And the beautiful came out of that. So the desire for perfection, the Mars North Node Virgo, the 6-2 profile, it's all about learning to have a functional life within the magic of your being. So the Virgo Pisces, the 1 through 6, and they actually only being 6 signs or 6 archetypes or 6 dialectic praise, like my astrologer says. Like, it just made the psychosexualness of it all come alive for me. And that's why I could understand why the occult and these images are harmful when it is subversed with the psychosexual and the feminine. And even what Saturn in Pisces, that video of Free to Behold, and the video that I also previously shouted out from her and stuff. But she mentioned about feminine beauty and youth and what that means and the relationship to a good mother and how we are programmed to kind of look for that, like just genetically, right? And it just got me thinking of like all my searches for like the Venus in Cancer, or how Cancer had to produce Venus for me, or how all the ways I was thinking of like what my taste in the matter would be for what would be pleasurable, how would I want to see my mom, Mercury men loving Venus women, and like loving to dress them up and adorn them, and just loving feminine energy because Mercury is very like there's a yin quality to it that's that cold contracting side of it as well. So Venus as a Rajasic planet, Mercury is said to always seek the approval of Venus's gaze. Like Venus approves, like, nope, you are symmetrical, you are beautiful, you are flowering, sweetie. And that's mommy goddess to you as well. First she was your Taurus filled breast that maybe you felt it was like a cow, I don't know. But when the scales come off your eyes, she's Lady Justice, and she was a Virgo before she had you. So, Huster, barren now because she gave all of her essence. I don't know, like, people say like a lot of fucked up shit online, and it just like, it always like sinks into me with this layer of, I guess, slick or salt. And I just think I have a very porous design, all those open centers, but I'm loving it. I just, now I'm learning to filter it, and through the transits and through these gates and through these channels and through natal chart synthesis and my knowledge of mythology, nakshatras, and all of that coming together with Asterian astrology, I'm hoping to continue on the path of just learning how to be alive, and not that there should be anything more, any adjectives, anything to say it's the gift of God or the mercy or the creative spark or it's the this or it's the that, or like to be alive, and honoring that we are alive here and now, and the free to behold concept of your whole self on the world stage, even if they are characters and players who have an unsavory script memorized when it comes to their part in the narrative that they will share the stage with you on in certain intervals, and yeah, worlds in collision. So you need to always be on your story. The way my astrologer said, I need to figure out my story, because I'm not lying about being gaslit. I'm not lying about having lied, about having been manipulative, about having had all these faces and masks. I'm not lying about any of that. I'm not lying about feeling every day it's the work for me to like watch myself for that and redeem myself, and it's not about compensatory things. There was this video where I saw like the more spiritual you become, the more awakened or whatever it was, somewhere in my screenshot video earlier. I already forgot what my point was. Anyway, because like I just felt like I just sounded so arrogant saying that. But this is my journey of like wanting to own that and not wanting to be duped by an ideal that a Sevan Boma AI carrot led me to the eighth sphere to find all the insidious monsters that were in the horror movies and the Doja Cats anyway, waiting for me because the aliens and the whatever, and they are making lights or whatever it is. Like, I just want to know that he who is like God, if that should have any bearing upon the fact that my name is Kalen, and I could find a correspondence elementally as to the meaning and the calling of what the word of God, even if I had a name English, even if I didn't know Aramaic and Hebrew or anything like that, even if I didn't know concordance, should God's word have been enough for me to know that he shall call you by your name? He doesn't make mistakes. Growing up in a religious family like I have, notwithstanding all the things that just was part of life for us as well. I'm trying to not be ashamed of my family anymore, or where I came from, or, having friends that just never meet them, or who I would never have brought home, having a boyfriend that I would never like bring home, things like that. Like all of those things, Leo in the fifth house, Saturn in the fifth house, all of those things where I like did a freezing over of my heart to keep it protected. All of that thawing needs to like be done now, and I need to not go phoenix mode like Jean. I need to learn to do it practically and constructively by building my creative work and not being afraid of showing what I'm doing because I'm ashamed, or I feel like it's not mine, or like my genius deludes me because it like comes in and then it makes sense and then like it leaves me, and like it's like, now do I think like, when Beyonce says she can't do what Shasha Fierce does, like I can't do, Kaylin can't do what Keykeeper can. You know what I mean? And yet there's this bridge that needs to be built. So these archetypes that were on the world stage, notwithstanding the choices they are making, how they're making their money, what they learned of what is going to like sell and be part of the great work in terms of alchemizing opposites and walking the golden line or doing the golden spiral, whether it's chaos, magic, sorcery, or whatever it is they are doing. We don't know. The soul, the veil, the Virgo, the hidden hand, the Mercury exaltation, the it's just like we don't know what other people made out of Maya's mirror, what they made it mean to them. They can be a edifice of knowledge, runes, archetypal letters, pictographs, animals that have been around for thousands of years, structures that have been around for hundreds and how many thousands of years being debatable. It doesn't matter. It's the fact that mutable Earth still created the confusion of Leo and Virgo in the Sphinx. So that's just what my pyramid scheme always kind of like comes back to, with seeing the birth of archetypes and the Zep-Tepe and the Velikovsky theory, and seeing theories that relate to that in ways that have been done with proper scientific method behind them, and learning to separate the wheat from the chaff. Like, that's why I recommend Innoverse podcast. And I am no longer going to be subscribed to Sevan Boma if I find proper proof, because obviously writing him off in his year's work just because somebody could be in their bedroom perhaps jealous of him and having a whole world of conspiracy theory to draw from, and she could just token him for tokenism because she knew that would be a trigger word to associate to him in order to get views and get money. So I don't want to be a part of any of that type of shit on here. Like, that is just not for me. I don't have the energy for that type of shit, because putting energy into pretense and lies, I feel like it's been costing me the joy of my life. And knowing that I did that for the sake of other people's comfort, it makes me fucking angry, because none of them gave me anything other than the mirror of stand for yourself. I'm standing for myself, and that's all I can do. Take a page out of that book. Don't merge with me. Don't reflect on me. Don't emotionally entangle yourself with the projection of me. That was the lesson. That was the reflection. That was the emotions. That was the projection.